the way I've been over the years learning this is that in the first volume, all the sichos are divided into 3 parts. We'll see that it has a logic to it. It says, בפרשתנו כתוב, על כל דבר פשע, על כל אבדה שאומר כי הוא זה, עד אלוקים ועוד דבר שניהם, ישלם 2 לרעהו. The pasuk says that if there's any kind of
loss.
No, pesha is when you do something wrong. It's not a loss.
I was looking at later.
So somebody was given something to a guard. He's a shomer. And he claimed that it was stolen, for instance. So if it was stolen, if he's a shomer, if he is a guard, all he needs to do is he needs to say that he's willing to take an oath in Beis Din, and he's finished. And he has no liability for the object that was stolen. So that's the regular way this works. But if he kasha means that he did something wrong, that he misplaced it, or he broke it, or whatever, and now he's saying it was stolen, and it's discovered. It's discovered that he was at fault. So pesha is like he was at fault on purpose. It wasn't just by mistake. He was at fault in some way, and it's discovered that he wasn't at fault. So on anything that he says ki hu zeh, we'll see in a moment what the Gemara says about that this is it. What do you mean this is it? Of course it's it. So he has to. They go to court, and then he pays double. It's as if he stole it himself. Because if somebody would have stolen it and was captured, and was caught, and he doesn't admit to stealing it, and this is the same case because he's not admitting to his fault, so he would have paid twice as much, right? The logic behind why does a thief pay twice as much? Why doesn't he just pay what he stole? So the other one time that he pays is a fine. It's not because he did any damage. It's a fine. Why is he fined? So you might think that he's fined because he stole. The Gemara says no, he's fined because he wasn't willing to admit that he stole. So the same thing holds here, that the guard, the person who was safekeeping this object, wasn't willing to admit that he did something wrong. So the same logic applies. He's also fined once. Otherwise, why fine him? There's no. Again, you could say I'm fining him for the action, but no, we fine him because he's not willing to admit his wrongdoing. And the Torah wants you to admit. The Gemara omeret, so it says the Rebbe, the Gemara says, "Ki pasuk zeh dan b'shomer hatoen shepigadon shufkad etzlo alaf leibud." That it's a guard, somebody who was safekeeping an object, who says that what was given me for safekeeping was lost or was stolen. He made a claim that by it he's not liable for any of the damages for having lost this object, right? Because he says it was lost. I didn't do anything. So there's a little bit of a difference between whether you were being paid to safeguard this object or not. If you weren't being paid, so any claim, even if it was stolen or lost, and you need to swear and you're finished. But if you were being paid to keep it, so the claim has to be that in some way it was beyond my power, and because of that it was lost, because of that it was destroyed. Some kind of force majeure. V'nishba, and he swears, takes an oath. But then some witnesses come and we learn that he made a false testimony, and he took a false oath, and he lied. So the law is that he gives twice as much, he's fined. So what does this all mean? Okay? So it says the Rebbe, says we've spoken many times, says the Rebbe, that everything that's in the revealed dimension of the Torah also exists spiritually. And actually the order is that first they exist spiritually, and then they come down, like we learned at the beginning of the week. Then the wisdom comes down, and it becomes a law in the revealed aspect of the Torah. So the source is the spiritual. So this whole complex picture that we just painted, it also exists spiritually. What is it? So, כבוד קדושת אדמו"ר בעל הצמר הצדק מפרש במאמר את הפסוק על כל דבר פשע מבחינת העבודה הרוחנית של נפש האדם. So the Tzemach Tzedek explained this whole verse and everything that goes with it in the Gemara in the spiritual work of man. נחזור איפה על חלק מן המאמר הקשור לזה וכמה הוספות בדרך אפשר. So he says, I'm going to repeat this mimer, and he says here, the mimer is in a book called Kitzurim Ve'arot Latanya. And there's a short work. It's not so short. It's Kitzurim Ve'arot. There's a lot of addendums to the Tanya, and there this mimer appears, and he says, I'm going to repeat this mimer with some additions that I think are true. בכל איש ישראל נמצא פיקדון של הקדוש ברוך הוא, היא הנשמה. So he says, we're all safekeeping something. We're all safekeepers. We were all given something to keep. What is it? The soul. אותו הוא צריך לשמור שישאר בשלמותו ולא ייפגם. We have to guard over it, make sure that it remains whole and is not blemished. אף יתרה מזו, not only that, we don't just have to safeguard it, but we also have to להעלות את הנשמה לדרגה נעלית מזו והייתה שורה לפני הירידה. We're supposed to elevate the soul to a higher level than what it was at before it came down into our bodies. כפי שידוע שירידת הנשמה בגוף היא ירידת צורך עלייה. So we know that the descent of the soul into the body is for the sake of an ascent. השמירה שיהודי צריך להעניק לנשמה קשורה גם בשבועה. And how does the oath figure into here? Because we've all taken an oath. And here it's interesting that the oath is before. You take the oath even before you did anything wrong, or anything happened. Why? Because you can't go back to take the oath. They don't want you to go back take it. If you go back take the oath, it's as if you're going to come back. You're going to come back into the body. So you take the oath before. כמאמר הזה לגבי נשמה עומדת לרדת למטה משמיעים אותו תהי צדיק ואל תהי רשע. So you took an oath, and actually it's an easier oath, right? Because you haven't done anything wrong yet. So it's just, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be a tzaddik, I'm not going to be a wicked person. So what does it mean that there's a fault? כל דבר פשע. אדם הפושע בפיקדון אומר לשבועה, מניין נובע הדבר. So now things take a turn, and now we begin to understand parts of the verse that didn't make sense so much before. The Gemara learns from this part of the verse many things, but before we didn't even mention it. Suddenly there's a list in the verse of all the things that could be an object that was given for safekeeping, and now something happened to it, and the person took a false oath, and now he's discovered. So what are these things? They're shol, v'chamo, v'seh, v'salma. They're an ox, a donkey, or an ass, and a sheep, and a garment, some garment. So in the verse, it's just a list, and there's different things you learn from it. But here, the order is reversed. What does it mean? That he's taking the oath that he'll be a tzaddik and not a rasha, even if he has these things that will happen to him that are called an ox, an ass, a sheep, and a garment. These are 4 things that could happen to the soul that we took an oath on. This is how it is spiritually, that we took an oath on that even if this happens, we won't lose the soul. We won't. We'll keep it safe. So what are these things that happen to the soul? These are types of categories of the animal soul. It's very interesting. When we think of the animal soul, we don't think about a garment. Why would a garment be part of the animal soul? But there's a chiddush in this.
It's a levush.
Okay. Why would that be an animal soul? Levush is the body has faculties. It's very good. The divine soul can use them. But what's an animal soul? It's called a garment. And these are, מביאים לידי על כל אבדה. They're the ones who cause a person to lose touch with his soul, that he doesn't keep it safe. עד לאשר יאמר כי הוא זה, על הוא הרי הוא אומר זה. This is a big chiddush also. He says, what does it mean that you lose touch with the soul? That you begin to say about who, that he is this. It's very interesting. First of all, who and Zeh have the same gematria, they're both equal to 12. But what do you mean? In the pshat, it's, I think he explains in a moment. What the
Depersonalize.
Yeah, in some kind of depersonalization. In the Gemara, the way the Gemara treats the literal meaning is not so easy. What does the Gemara say? Say the pshat first. I remember where he says it here. Yeah, I don't remember where he says it. I think he says it here somewhere. But in the Gemara, it's like this: that if I don't admit at all that you gave me something to keep, then I can't take a vow. I can only take the vow if I at least modeh b'miktzat. So the Gemara says, ki hu zeh is modeh b'miktzat. Modeh b'miktzat means I admit to I partially admit that you gave me something. Meaning, you say you gave me $100 to keep, I say you gave me 25. Okay. On the 25 I can take a vow, and with the vow I already also say, and I didn't do anything wrong for this 25, and I also, you add to that you never gave me 75 more, so it was only 25. But if you don't admit to anything, then you can't take an oath. So this is a very huge sugya in Shas about why is it that an oath needs to be on something that you can't take an oath if there's no, if you don't admit anything, if you're not agreeing to anything that the claimant makes. That's the pshat. It's very hard to put it into the words. How Chazal got this? It's clear that this was some kind of masoret that they had, some kind of tradition that they had. This is what it means. But spiritually, it makes a lot more sense. At least it makes some sense. I don't know if it makes a lot more sense, but it makes some sense. So he says like this. Zeh b'muvano amiti. This, when you say this, what does that refer to? Nasov al kedusha ve'elokut. The word "this" refers to holiness and to godliness. K'lapei shum davar ayi efshar lomar zeh milvad k'lapei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You can't say this about anything but God.
Zeh kivinu lo v'yoshi.
Right. Everywhere in the Tanakh, when they say zeh refers to God. Interesting. Who doesn't refer? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Who is also? So he says like this. Zeh b'mashmuto apshuta zeu zeh. There's an Israeli TV show called זהו זה. אפשר לומר רק על הקדוש ברוך הוא, שכן מציאותו של נברא איננה הוא, כי אם החיות האלוקית מהווה אותה תמיד מאין ליש. בלשון הרמב"ם, אין שם מצוי אמת מלבדו. So he says like this, when we say this, we mean to say, what is the substance, what is the essence of what I'm pointing at? And then you can only say the
There's
essence
only
of
one
everything
thing.
is God. That's like saying the thing in and of itself. So the thing in and of itself, that's always God. Because God is the real substrate of everything. Secondly, zeh b'mashmaut hinei zeh, like you said, hinei Elokeinu zeh kivinu lo. האפשרות לומר בכל זמן ובכל מקום, hinei zeh ke'enot rak be'elokut. So that whatever I'm pointing at is still that, and it's not changing over time. Because when I say this, so even when I pointed, theoretically, I pointed at the phone. So the phone's not the same at every moment. It's changing. It's falling apart, right? How long does it take for the phone to fall apart? I don't know, 5 years. So from minute to minute that I say this, it's a different phone. All the more so if I'm pointing to a human being who's changing all the time. His cells are changing. Everything's changing. The only thing that's unchanging is godliness. Moreover, he says, it's also that when I say this, I mean wherever I point this. So what is the only thing that's everywhere? It's a
We
shame.
know the song.
לפיכך אין מקום לומר עליו זה. You can't say about any other creation this. So it's very interesting, this idea. This is from some aesthetics, not from Rebbe. ברם שם שמיים שבור בפי כל, רק לגבי הקדוש ברוך הוא נמצא בכל מקום, לעת יותר פנוי מן אפשר לומר זה, הנה זה. So normally we should have been referring to Hashem as this. זה. But משום ההלם וההסתר של הנפש הבהמית עלולה להיות החלפה לומר על הוא זה. But because of the animal soul, because of these four reasons that we said, a person can come to suddenly call Hashem hu. Hu in Hebrew means he. And he is third person and it's hidden. Hu is nistal. I don't see this. I only have he. So I stop referring to Hashem directly and I say Hashem is somewhere. But I don't see it. I'm not connected. It's not this, and it's not that, and it's not this, and it's not that. It's he. He's somewhere. It's very interesting. So what he's saying is from Hashem being everything, he becomes transcendent. He's somewhere in the heavens. It doesn't bother me too much. And that, he says, happens because of the animal soul. So that's the shift that happens in a person. And that's what causes a person to be at fault with his neshama, with his soul.
It's counterintuitive. Zeh is inanimate. Who is animate?
No. Miu ze ve'ezehu. Like when they say who, like in the Megillah. Haman Avasha has ze. You can say about a person ze. You should say.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
I understand.
Yeah, you're right that maybe in modern Hebrew ze is less the pronoun for a person. And in Tanakh it's the same. Okay. So now it wants to explain what are these four things. What are these four animal souls that we've never heard of, maybe? I thought there was one type of animal soul. So we knew that there were different animal souls. Because there's different animals. But a garment, that I've never heard of. ביחס לביטוי דרכות הנפש הבהמית הנפלאים בסוגבר והסוגים שאוכל עושה ושלמה, מסביר כבוד קדושת אדמו"ר הצמח צדק במאמר שמשמעותו ששור הוא שור נגחן. So he says like this, the ox represents something that is, what do you call it?
Gores.
Gores. A goring ox. Chamor, chama b'tkufat Tammuz krirale. About the donkey, about the ass, it says that even in the hottest days of the summer, he shivers. So he's cold. He's cold all the time. Salma. So a garment is from the word in Hebrew, another word for garment is beged. Beged bogdim bagdu. So a garment is a traitor. Someone who goes against his own grain. The seh, how is the sheep connected? About the seh, about the sheep, it says, Seb Zura Yisrael. That the Jewish people are like a scattered sheep. Like they were sheep that were scattered all over. So these are four different aspects of the animal soul. And each one of them can cause the person to be at fault with guarding his soul. Even though one must protect himself from all these types of animal souls. Each one of them can cause a person to lose touch with his soul. It says every era of human history has a different stress on one of these types of animal souls. So guess which one is ours. It's hard to guess.
Good.
What? Bugad? So no, the Rebbe would never say that. I doubt that he would say that even about a person, about an individual, all the more so about. משום כך, נתעכב במיוחד בביאור העניין ששה, הנוגע במיוחד בדברים. It says, our generation is mostly about the scattered sheep.
We're lost.
Lost sheep. So exactly what does it mean that it's lost? So he has a very interesting take. People are like a scattered sheep. There's a question that needs to be asked. Because the mimer is Seb Zura, the pasuk is Seb Zura Yisrael. It's a pasuk in a Moshe thing. Why does he call us Yisrael when he says that we're scattered sheep? I think he called us Israel. He should have said Yaakov. Especially since, if I'm not mistaken, that it's one of the prophets of the north, I think. And they were very fond of calling Yaakov, not Yisrael. because Yisrael was the name that Yaakov was given, that he was the father of all the tribes. And they liked the name Yaakov. It also connected them to Beitel, because in Beitel, Yaakov was still called Yaakov. And they built a temple in Beitel. They had a lot of reasons to call him Yaakov. So I think that adds, I don't remember where this verse is from, and the footnoting in the early Sichos was not very clear. So you can't tell. You look it up later. But I think that it's also a part of the problem here. So why is it called Israel? Israel is the name of the highest stature for the Jewish people. And when you say that they're scattered sheep, you're not saying that they're at a very high level. Especially since we're not talking about the divine soul, we're talking about the animal soul. מדוע איפה בשעה שכתוב רוצה לומר סב פזורה הוא מסביר שם ישראל. אך העניין הוא שאומנם זאת אשר שואל הנביא, כיוון שבני ישראל מוכתרים בשם ישראל, ישרית עם אלוקים ועם אנשים בתוכל, כלומר, לא it's ירמיהו, so doesn't my question is not a question. So even though Yirmiyahu was for both the northern and southern kingdoms, but he's not one of the northern prophets. The Chonoven, so he says, this is the question itself that Yirmiyahu asks. That, what does it mean to be called Israel? Yaakov was called Israel because he was able to vanquish Esau's angel. So he was able to conquer nations. He was able to be his own person. כלומר, איש ישראל מסוגל לשרוד, לא רק על אנשים, כי הם גם המלכים, he's able to be victorious, not only above people, over people, but with angels even. כיצד אין לו תוקף במידה כזאת, שהוא נגרר אחר כל אחד ובבחינת צא בשורה. He says, what does it mean, the sheep scattered? That something, they were impressed by something, maybe a wolf came and they scattered, or each one of them followed someone else. And the whole flock began to scatter. So this is the opposite of being Israel. Being Israel means that you are independent, and that you're so strong that you can be victorious over any person, and even angels. So how did you suddenly become a scattered sheep? He says that's part of the prophecy that Yirmiyahu says. So this was also this was Haman's argument in heaven. What was his argument to Achashverosh? Achashverosh here symbolically is God. The king who has the beginning and the end. There's a nation that is supposed to be one. What does it mean that he's one? He's able to reveal the one everywhere, not only in the heavens, but even on the earth. To be one means to reveal God's oneness. And yet, as it says, one nation in the land, and in spite of his greatness, this nation, the Jewish people, but he's impressionable, and he's impressed by every single nation that comes along, right? And the last thing that he cares about is what it says in the Torah, and so he doesn't do what it says in the Torah. Instead, he follows every, how do you say, Joe, Gary,
bunch of sheep.
Whoever it is, whoever the local.
I think it's Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Tom, Dick, and Harry. Okay, so we'll continue tomorrow. Very, very nice sicha.
Yeah.
We still have about 2/3 to go.